Once again, I just want to thank you all for joining us. This is our ACT training webinar for February 2025. And today we're going to talk about ACT data. Specifically, we're going to talk about how to protect it. And that's a pretty vast term when I'm talking about protecting your data. Immediately, your mind probably goes to securing it, making sure that it doesn't get lost, making sure that the wrong people can't see it. But we're going to go a little bit, we're going to take that topic and go a little bit wider than that. We're going to talk about also the integrity of your data, making sure that the data that's getting entered is exactly what you want to be entered. So we're going to cover that today in this month's session. Our agenda is going to cover several different live demonstrations. We're going to talk about preventing duplicate records. I'm going to show you how you can use dropdowns to help standardize the types of values that you're entering in your fields and to really kind of police that to make sure that the values in your fields are consistent across the board. We'll look at one of the self-help troubleshooting items you can do with databases by repairing and re-indexing your database. Solves a lot of problems. We'll get into users, their roles, their permissions, how you can change a user's role, how you can change their individual permissions to give them more or less access to your ACT data. And then we're going to look at specific areas of security, how you can secure entire records and then individual fields which are on those records. So we'll go a little bit deep there, and hopefully you'll come away with this with some knowledge and some confidence on how you can make sure that your data is exactly what you want, and only the people that should see it are the ones who are seeing it. Of course, if you're new to this series, we've been doing this for over 2 years now, and we have a Q&A panel inside Zoom. So if you can't find that Q&A panel, this is where you're going to ask questions. I've got Daniel Horn, who's here to answer questions throughout this webinar today. The Q&A panel is found inside the More button in your Zoom panel. So if you can't find it, that's where it's hidden. Open that, and that's where you're going to ask questions. We're not going to even monitor the chat panel today. So if you have questions, put those in Q&A. Also, this is being recorded. The most common question I get is, hey, is this webinar being recorded? The answer is yes, we're recording it, and we record every single one of these. You'll get an email shortly after this is concluded, which has a link to the video that you can watch. But also, we store these on our website so that you can view any of these webinar sessions. You can stream them on demand whenever you want. So I'll share that webpage with you towards the end here. And then last bit of housekeeping is at the end, when we conclude this, you may be asked to fill out a survey. I know we're always filling out surveys for this and that and the other, but this really does help us. It helps me to prepare better demonstrations for you guys, to prepare the types of demonstrations that you want to see. So fill out that survey. Let us know what we're doing well and what we can do better. And if you have any ideas for additional future webinars like this, please share that. I'm very interested to know what you guys want to know. So with that said, let's begin. And a little bit about me. I haven't even introduced myself. My name is Brent Milner. I'm an ACT trainer, instructional designer here for ACT. I've been working with ACT for over 19 years now. That number just keeps getting bigger. My job at the company is to create training videos. Maybe you've seen a few of those. I help educate our new employees, our partners, and ACT customers. I live in northern Arizona where there's lots of trees and actual snow. So it's a beautiful place, and I love it up here. So let's start talking now about our main topic here. Talking about data protection. And really, we're kind of chopping this into two main topics. Data integrity and data security. So we're going to start with data integrity. What is data integrity? It really, if I want to really dumb it down, I would just say data integrity means having good data. Well, then the question is, well, what's good data? Well, good data means you don't have duplicate records. So when you're importing a spreadsheet or when you're creating new records in ACT, inevitably you might end up having multiple records of the same contact or the same company. And that's not good data, because now You might be working with one version of that contact, and somebody else at your company is working with the other version of that contact, and those two contact records are not colliding. There's no consistency there, and that's a bad set of data because now you have two versions of the same person, and that means you're going to have two separate trails of history, two separate trails of activities, and that's not good for anybody. So I'm going to show you how you can do two things: how you can prevent duplicate records, and then when duplicate records get into your system, what you can do about it, how you can fix that. So that's one example of bad data versus good data, the duplicate records. Another example of good data means that the values you're entering in your fields all have consistent values. And that goes across all users, not just you, but everybody at your company. When you're entering data into fields, you're all doing it the same way. And I'm going to show you some ways that you can help ensure that that happens, that you're all entering data the same way. And a third example of good data, it means it's following your formatting standards. So you may have some ways that you enter data that follows a specific format, and you want that to be consistent across the board. And I'm going to show you some ways to force that. So let's start by covering duplicate records here. Let me jump into my ACT database. I'm going to be demonstrating here today on ACT Premium Cloud. Now, my account is an ACT Premium Cloud with desktop sync. So I can use either cloud or desktop, but because it's primarily a cloud account, whenever I'm doing anything in the database, I have to be logged into the cloud. So when I go to my define fields area, that has to be done in the cloud version rather than desktop, because that's where my database is. So let's start with duplicate records. How do we prevent duplicate records? Well, I'm going to show you, first of all, I'm going to do two things. I'm going to create a duplicate record, and then I'm going to attempt to create a way to prevent it. So first of all, in the tools menu, towards the bottom, there is a preferences selection. When you choose preferences, if you're the admin of the system, you have access to this admin area. And this is where you can either enable or disable duplicate checking in the database. This is your preventative measure. If this is enabled, ACT is going to work to try to guarantee nobody is importing or creating duplicate records in your database. If this is disabled, then ACT won't check, and you can create duplicate records all day long. So I'm going to disable it first of all, and I'm just going to create a duplicate record to show you how this might be resolved. So with that disabled, I'm going to click one of my contact records here. His name is Ryan Wheaton, and I'm going to duplicate him. I'll just click the duplicate button at the top right, and I'm going to duplicate records from primary fields here so that it will show, okay, I have a new record. I'm going to enter his name in here, Ryan Wheaton, and I'm going to save it. Now, ACT will let me do this because I have my duplicate settings turned off. But now, and even if I go, I think forward one, it'll show me the other Ryan Wheaton. What I'm going to do here, just to guarantee I have a duplicate record, is I'm going to copy his email address, and then I'm going to go back to my new Ryan Wheaton record, and I'll just paste his email in there and click save. Okay. So now I have a duplicate record, but how can I prevent this from happening ever again? Well, I'll show you this again. I'm going to go to my tools menu, scroll down, and choose preferences. And in the preferences area, we're going to go to the admin section. If you're on desktop, there will be an admin tab at the top. So you just click admin. It takes you into this admin area where you can now enable duplicate checking. Now, I should tell you, this is only going to prevent future duplicate records. This is not going to prevent, this is not going to go back and fix any records that have already been created. You know, you're right. Somebody said in chat, I pasted that email in the wrong place. Thanks for catching that. That's why we love the chat feature here. So let's copy that and put it in email. Thanks for spotting that for me. I appreciate it. Sometimes my fingers click faster than my brain thinks. So back into the back in the duplicate checking area. Now we're going to enable this. So like I said, this is going to Wow, that really messed up my email field. Let me start over here. I noticed that now the email is copied in the formatting of the phone number. So let me go back here. I click on that email, it's going to launch an email uh, uh, through Outlook, and I don't want to do that. So let me just go back and paste it the proper way. There we go. Okay. All right, we're all set here. I have done this before. Back in the preferences area, one more time in the admin section. Again, if I enable this, it's only going to check future records. It's not going to go back and check any previous dupes. And so now down below, we have to decide what types of records are we going to check duplicates on. So you can check on contact, company, or group records. I'm going to stick with contacts for now. And you have to decide also what will determine that two records are duplicates. You have to figure out the criteria here. So you can do it however you want. I've had some people say do it by contact name, company name, phone number, but you just have to determine what will ensure a duplicate record. And also thinking about, I don't want any false duplicates to pop up. And what I mean by that, if I were just to choose name, like his name, if I had more than one Ryan Wheaton, even though they were two different people with the same name, ACT would still say this is a duplicate record. So that's going to be false duplicates. You don't want that to happen because then that'll trigger all the time and it'll slow you down. For me, I think if somebody has the same name and the same email address, that's one person because not very many people share email addresses. So for me, that works. Now, this means I have to be entering emails in for all of my contact records. If you're not using the email field, then this won't work for you. So for everybody, it's different. You just have to figure out what it is that makes a person unique. And you have three fields here that you can use to define that. Okay, with that said, I'm going to click OK now. And now my duplicate checking will be turned on. Now, remember, I said this is only going forward. This doesn't go back and check for previous duplicate records. So now what should happen is if I try to create a new record here, and this record is Ryan Wheaton. Let me just use my cheaty way to copy that in. And if I put his email address in here again and click save, ACT will say, what you're trying to do is create a duplicate record. Are you sure you want to continue? If I click OK, ACT will let me do it, but at least it's giving me a warning to say you're about to create a duplicate record. So I'm going to cancel that and say no, and then I'll go about my day. Now, what do I have to do to prevent a duplicate record or to go back and check any records that have been dupes? Let me just change his name to Bill so that it lets me save it. And now what I'm going to do is go back and look for any records that might exist in my database that are duplicates. What I can do is go to my tools menu here, and we have an option here for scanning for duplicates. Before you do this, what you want to do is make sure you're doing a lookup of all contacts in your database. So I'm going to go to my lookup menu, choose all contacts, because when I use this deduplication check, it's going to look at your current lookup, the current lookup that you have in your database. So now I'll go to tools, scan for duplicates, and now it's asking me what I'm going to do to determine whether it's a duplicate. I'm just going to use the same criteria, contact and email address. That's good enough for me. When I do that, it says duplicate contacts have been found. Would you like to start combining them? And I'll say, yes, I would like to start combining them. And so it's going to open up my deduplication wizard. That's what we used to call it, where I can now copy data from one contact to another and then delete the duplicate record. So I'll click next. Right now it's checking my current lookup. That's why I did a lookup of all contacts. I could have just chosen all contacts here to begin with. So either way works. And it'll show all duplications here. Now you have to do this one at a time, one pair at a time, because ACT doesn't know inherently what to do with duplicate records. You have to tell it, here's what I want to keep and here's what I want to remove. So on this screen, what you'll need to do is click one of these records, hold down your control button and select the other one. That way, both of these records are selected. And so ACT knows these are the two records I'm working with right now. When I click next, it's going to show me these two records side by side. One will be marked as the source and one will be marked as the target. What we have to do is decide which is the one we're going to keep and which is the one we're going to delete. The target is the one you'll keep. The source is the one that will eventually be deleted. So What I usually do here is I scroll down through this list to see which record has more data. And the record that has more data, that's going to be the one I want to keep. So I'll make that the target. In this instance, I'm going to copy contact 2 to contact 1 because I want contact 1 to be the one that I keep. So when I scroll down now, if there's any records that are on contact 2 that are not on contact 1, I can deal with that in just a bit. So I'm going to click next. And so in this instance, I would look to see if there's anything on contact 1 that's not yet in contact 2, you'll select each field and you'll click copy, and it'll make sure that both exist in the same place. So I want to make sure that what I did right just then was I overwrote my new target with data from the one I'm deleting, and it removed it. So you have to be careful here that you're not copying from blanks to actual records that you want to keep. But I can fix what I just did in a minute. I recognize this field and I can fix that. When you go through here and you've copied everything over, you'll click next again. And now you have the option to copy over all notes, histories, activities, any custom table records, opportunity records, secondary contacts, documents, all that stuff. You probably want to copy that over to make sure that you're not losing any of that. So I'll make sure those are checked and I'll click next. And then the last step is, what should we do now with the source record now that everything has been copied to the target? Well, the answer is delete it. That's the whole reason we started this, is we want to get rid of that duplicate record. So I'm going to say, yes, delete this source record from my contact or from my database. So I'll click next. And ACT warns you, hey, we can't restore this once you delete it. So there's always this last warning that we get. So I'll click OK. Yes, delete that. And now when I click finish, I should see that my Ryan Wheaton record has been removed. And now I just have the regular one that I started with in the first place. So that's how you can use set up duplication checks and also enable duplication checks and then perform combinations or perform like merging of two records once you find duplicates in your database. Yes, this can be time consuming if you have lots and lots of duplications, but that's why we want you to prevent it before you run into this problem. Also, when you're using spreadsheets to import, it's just a really good idea to just take a look at your spreadsheets. Don't import your spreadsheets just blindly. Have a look in there just to make sure you're not importing a lot of duplicate records. Yes, ACT should catch those, but save yourself some time and do a look over your import spreadsheets before you actually begin that process. Okay, next up, what I want to do is, in my list here, the next thing I wanted to do is use dropdowns to standardize values. So I mentioned this in the start, is you can use dropdown lists if you really want to kind of force some of the values that you're seeing on these fields, on these fields. So I'm going to go back into Ryan Wheaton's record here, and I've created a custom tab just for this training called Count Info, and I'm going to use this truck type drop-down list to kind of force values. Let's look at this. If I go to my tools menu and define fields, everybody else is locked out of my database, so that's good. What you're going to want to do is go to this manage drop-down lists area. Now I've created a drop-down list called truck types. So let's look at that. Now, the reason I'm doing this is I want to prevent somebody from keying in these truck types. I want them to use the drop-down list that I'm providing so that there's no misspelled words, that people are capitalizing where they need to capitalize, and they're just using the truck types that we've predetermined. These are what you should select. And so a drop-down field can help you do that. But one thing that it can also do is I can allow some leniency here. So in this truck types drop-down list, I'm going to edit this just to see what the rules are that I've set up. So I've created a truck types drop-down, but what I'm doing is I'm allowing my editors to edit the items in the list. So I'm saying, all right, anybody else, any other users at my company, I trust you. If there's any anything that needs to be added to the list, if there's anything that needs to be changed in the list, I'm going to allow you to edit this. And not only that, if you type something new in that field, it's going to automatically add that to my list as well. So even though I have a drop-down list, this data isn't really secure. This data isn't really filled with integrity because I'm allowing people to make edits and changes. So let's see what that looks like. I'm going to close this window here and go back into my Ryan Wheaton record. And on the account info tab is my truck type dropdown. If I look at the dropdown, I can see I have 5 options here, 5 different truck types. So he could either, I could either select one for this user, or I could just type in anything. So if I put in Ranger, for example, and I click save, because I'm allowing users to edit this list and I'm allowing users to add items to this list, even if they just type it in, now Ranger is going to show up in this list going forward. One other thing, because I'm allowing users to edit this list, you'll see this edit list values button at the bottom of a dropdown. That means that all users can click on that and now manually add new values here. We'll just say this is called a U-Haul. And I'll add that to my list, just like that. Whenever a user does that, whenever they click save here, that U-Haul will appear on the list for all users. So yes, this is a drop-down list, but the values that are on this list are not very secure because anybody can change them, even if they misspell it. Somebody came in and spelled Ranger with 2 R's and clicked save. Guess what's going to happen? It's going to add Ranger with 2 R's now as part of that list. So you can see how this is probably not the best. But we can change that. So I'm going to create a new drop-down list where I'm really forcing what they can do. So let's go back into my define fields area, and I'm going to manage drop-down lists. And this time I'm going to create a new one. So here's how you create a new drop-down list. This is one way to do it. When you're creating fields in ACT and you choose to use a drop-down list, you can bypass this step by, it'll take you here directly. I'll show you what that is in a little bit. But I'm going to create a new drop-down list here, and we're going to just call it truck color options, right? So maybe there's just a few options that I have for my trucks, and I don't want them to change any of that. So this is going to be characters, so I'm using letters. And I'm going to say, no, I don't want to allow users to edit the items in this list. I'm going to lock this list down so that not only can they not edit the items, but they won't be able to add new items to the list as well. When I click next, now I have to put in the options that I want to be in the dropdown. So I'm just going to put 3 options in here. We'll say that red is an option of truck, maybe blue, and probably black. And you can go through here and add as many of these as you want. Once I'm finished with that, I'm just going to click finish, and ACT will create this drop-down list for me so I can close this. But before I close this, I want to add this new truck color options field to my contact layout. So I'm going to create a new field, and I'll call it truck color options. All right. Again, this is going to be a character data type because I'm just using letters, numbers. Well, no numbers, but letters here. I'm not going to force them to choose a value in this field, so I'm going to allow it to be blank. But now down below, I'm going to choose to use a drop-down list. And this is where I said you could bypass that step. Now, if I wanted to create a new list, if I choose this, create a new list, then ACT will take me into that creating a drop-down section that we just did. But since I've already created it, it will appear in my list down below, truck color options. So I'll choose that and click next. And so now I can customize field and list behavior. What this lets me do is say, if I limit this to the list, this means that users can only select values from my drop-down list. So they won't be able to type anything else. They won't be able to choose anything that's not on my list. That's what I want to select because I want to make sure they're only entering things that exist on the drop-down list. Maybe these trucks can come in more than one color. This is where I can allow multi-select. So this will mean that the list becomes checkboxes rather than just select one option. So I'm going to select those 2 and click next. And I don't think there's anything else I need to do here, so I'll click finish. And now Act will create that field for me in my database. Once that's done, the last thing I have to do, of course, is add it to my layout. So let's close the Define Fields window here. And now I'm going to add that field to my layout on my Account Info tab. And remember, this is just a custom tab that I created. When I go to my Tools menu, I'm going to use this Design Layouts submenu and choose Contact. Now, this will open the web contact. This will open the layout designer, but it will open up the layout that I was currently viewing. Now, remember, you can have more than one layout, and you can save, you can create new layouts as you want, but whenever you go to the designer, it's always going to open up the one that you're currently viewing. So in my Account Info tab, by the way, if you want to know how to create a new tab, that's easy to do. Just a little side note here. Go to your Edit menu, choose Tabs, and then on the right, there's a button called Add Tab. Click Add Tab, name the new tab, click OK, and it'll create that tab for you. And then from here, you can move your tabs all around. If you want to move them up, you can move them up and they'll show up further to the left on your display. So I moved my Account Info tab next to Groups, and so that's where it is now. So now back to my truck color option. I'm going to add a new field here. So I'll click a field button. Remember, these are separated into drawing categories and field categories. I'm going to make sure the field category is selected. I'm going to select the field button to make it active. And then on my layout, I'm just going to drag a rectangle. And that just sizes the field for me. You can resize this later, but this is what tells Act we want a field right here. Down below, I just need to find my new truck color options field. I want to include a label so that I know what that field represents, and I'll click Add. And now it adds that here on my layout. Now I could spend some time here changing the fonts and the colors and all that stuff. I'm going to bypass that for now, and I assume that you guys know how to do that. I'll just move this over a little bit so it's not so crowded. And now I'll click Save. This is a little glitch. This appears sometimes, it appears twice. I'm not sure why it does that, but that's just a small little glitch here that needs to get resolved. That's in the cloud version only. It won't appear that way on the screen. When I click Exit, now it's going to exit my layout designer. And now I see my new truck color options drop down, which gives me red, blue, and black. Of course, they're alphabetized for me. I can't type anything in. I can't edit the list values. All I can do is choose one or more options. So that data there now has integrity because I can't mess it up. I can't misspell red. I can't add green. It's exactly the data that I want to be there. And for me as a data manager or sales manager or whatever, that's what I want. I don't want any of these mistakes happening. So I can lock down that data on my dropdowns. Okay, that was kind of long-winded, but I hope that helped you kind of get some ideas on how you can use dropdown lists to manage the integrity of your data here in Act. One last thing I want to do, this isn't really on my agenda, but I'm going to show it to you anyway because I'm on the screen, is you can also force the formats on your fields. So I have an account number field here, and in my company, our account numbers always begin with 4 letters followed by 2 numbers, and I can force these to be capitalized too. Let me show you how that works. When I created this field, let me go back into my Tools menu, and I'm going to choose Define Fields. I'm going to look at this account number field that I created. This is a custom field. When I edit this field, I'll be able to show you a few things. First of all, for field data type, I set it to be uppercase. And that just means no lowercase letters can be entered in here. And that's great for me because maybe I have some OCD, or I don't know, maybe I don't want to see any lowercase letters. My eyeballs like to see capital letters in this field. So I'm forcing this to be uppercase. And that's a big deal for a lot of people. So this is an option you have. If you choose character, you can use upper and lowercase. But if you choose uppercase, it's going to only allow uppercase letters. Now, in addition to that, when I go to the next screen here, there's a screen called Customize Field Behavior. And there's a little known field called Field Format. It's optional. You don't have to use this. But for me, I'm going to use it because this is where I can force the types of characters that are entered into this field and what order they're entered in. So I know that the @ symbol represents a character. or I'm sorry, a letter. The at symbol represents a letter. And then the number symbol or hashtag or pound sign or whatever you want to call it, that character represents a number. So what I'm doing here is I'm saying in this field, it has to be 4 letters followed by 2 numbers. And then down below, I've set a field length at 6, so you can't enter anything additional to that. This is a great way to lock down the values on a field and really help preserve the data integrity that you have for a single field. Now, if I try to enter anything but 4 letters followed by 2 numbers, Act would throw an error and it won't let me save that data. So this is very useful if you have fields like that where you need to make sure that the data matches in a specific way. Okay, let's see. The last thing I want to show you here is repairing your database, re-indexing your database. Sometimes you run into some problems. Sometimes you run into some errors and maybe your database isn't behaving the way you want it to. When you call customer support, the first thing that they do after they verify who you are and all that is they're going to say, have you done a database repair? Have you done a database re-index? And you'll say, I don't know what that is. And so then they'll say, all right, here, let's log in. Let's go to the tools menu and use this database submenu. What you're going to do is choose check and repair. This allows you to do look for any errors in your database. Look at that. There's that word, integrity. It's going to check your database to find any errors and it's going to repair it. And then it's going to re-index it. It just means reorganizing it. If you remember in the old days when you used to have to defrag your Windows machine, that's kind of what this is. It reorganizes so that the data is in the places where it gets accessed first. It just increases the speed, looking up data and all that. You should perform these regularly. You don't need to wait for an error to happen. Maybe just do this, once a week, once a month, or whatever. It should improve your performance and it should fix any regular errors that might appear. But that's where you're going to do that. And it only takes a few minutes. I'm not going to do it now because it would be boring for you to watch. But that's a common process that you can do to help keep your database running quickly and error-free. Okay, next, we talked about data integrity. Hopefully that made sense. Now I want to talk about data security. So what is data security? Most of you know what this is, but there's a couple of different perspectives that we can use to look at data security. First of all, who can see which records in ACT? Who can edit those records? And then going down and drilling down further, what about specific fields? Maybe I don't care if everybody can see all the records, but maybe there are some specific fields that are sensitive, and I want to make sure that I lock those down. So that's 2 different facets into security that we're going to look at now. But first, I want to even cover going even higher level than that is setting your user roles and permissions. You may have different user types at your company. You want one person to be maybe a manager. Maybe you have other people who shouldn't really edit anything. And so there are different rules that have been predefined and set up for you to manage this. So let's begin by looking at user roles. Do you even know how to change the roles for your users? Well, if you go to your tools menu, there will be a section here called Manage Users. Now, this will open up your Manage Users window. And in the desktop version and the cloud version, this is consistent until the next step. If I'm in the cloud version and I need to change one of my users' roles, what I'll have to do is click the additional settings link here. And this is going to pop open a new window where now I can manage the users of my database. So you'll choose your database first, and then you'll click Change User Roles. Now, what this will do is it'll list all the users in your system. It'll tell you what role they currently have. And all you have to do is use the drop-down box to switch the role. In the desktop version of ACT, when you click any of these users, what you'll end up doing is edit that user, and it'll take you into where you can change their role. So just a little bit of a difference, but it does the same thing in both places. So what are these user roles? Well, here it's listed from browse user all the way up to manager or a system manager. And what we're doing here is this browse user is basically just someone who can log in and view data. They can't make any edits. They can view data. This might be something that like an intern does where you say, hey, I want you to call these 5 people and talk to them today, get some updated information for them, or do whatever, they'll be able to view that data, but they won't be able to make any changes to it. And then as we go further down, you're going to get more and more permissions on that user's role until you get to system manager. The system manager is just basically a person who can perform database checks and things like that. So they're not really even logging into to records to see anything. They're just managing that database. So the admin, of course, has every permission in the system. I recommend only having one admin at each company, because if you have more than one, maybe you're going to get into a situation where you have too many cooks in the kitchen. But that's really up to you. Maybe you can work that way and you're fine with having 2 administrators. If that's your case, then great, go for it. So what about these user roles? How do we figure out what these roles include? A lot of the time we get questions. What does a standard role have? What are the permissions? If you go to your ACT help area, so all you have to do is, when you're looking at ACT, click the question mark and choose help topics. I think in the desktop version, there's a help menu you can use to do this. And this will open up a little browser window that shows your help area. Click the search button at the bottom. And then in your search window, I just want you to type in user roles and click search. This will bring up all the topics that have to do with users. So if you click adding, editing, or deleting users, this will get you to where you need to be. It tells you how to add users, how to edit them, how to delete them. There's a lot of stuff here. But the one that I want to show is under the enter user information page, there's this little link that says access role. If you click that, it'll talk about what roles and permissions are. And from here, you can view a summary of the security roles in ACT, what an admin user can do, what a manager user can do, and so forth. And you can also view permissions, what the individual permissions are that you can edit. And we're going to talk about permissions here next. But this is where you'll be able to find that inside your ACT help area. So what are permissions? Okay, well, let's go back and go to my tools menu, and we'll manage users again. This time, when I choose one of my users, I'm going to click edit user information. And from here, if I click next and next again, it will take me into the add permissions section. If you're on the desktop, I think there's even an add permissions link, which just bypasses everything and takes you right to the screen. But in both places, this is where you're going to manage individual permissions for one user. So maybe, even though this is a standard user, maybe I want to give him access to ACT Marketing Automation, for example. Even though he's a standard user, I want him to be my ACT Marketing Automation admin. So what I would do is select that role or that permission and move it over into the permissions that have been now added to this user. That's how you can manage that. One of the most common permissions that we get that people need to add is this web API access. So if you have users at your company who, when they click the welcome screen, they get an error that says can't access the API or whatever, that's what you need to do, is you need to add this web API access permission to their user permissions page. Once you do that, then they'll be able to view that screen and everything will be fine. So that's how you add permissions. That's how you change a user's role at your company. And that's useful because now you have people doing the exact things you need them to do. You're improving your security, at least from your user standpoint. But now let's drill down a little bit and get into the actual records themselves. So looking at this record for Ryan Wheaton, if I go to the Contact Access tab, this is where I'm going to be able to manage the access level that my users have over this record. Maybe for some reason I've decided that, you know what, I don't want everybody to see and edit the fields for Ryan's record. I don't even want Ryan to show up on reports for other users. What I can do is set this to be private. Now, when I do this, ACT is going to give me a warning to say, you know what, only the record manager will be able to view this record going forward. Even the admin won't be able to see this record. It's only going to be the record manager who can see this. So in this instance, that's pretty private. That's really secure. And maybe that's what you need because now the admin won't even be able to look this person up. Or you might decide that's too much security. Maybe I want the record manager to see it, but I also want my administrator to still be able to find all records. In this case, we'll change the access level to limited. And once it's set at limited, you can choose which users or which teams of users now have access to this record. So I'm going to click that box, and you'll see that there's a tab for both users and teams. So right now I have it set to Eric, who is the record manager, but also I have a team of administrators, and that means myself because I'm the admin. That means both of us could see this. But you also can set up teams of users in ACT. I have several different teams that I've set up for my database. I have teams based on geographic location. So I have 5 different regions in the United States. I have 1 region in Canada, and I have different users set to be part of those teams. So if I wanted to make sure that my Southwest team of users could see and edit this record, I would just move that over to my selected teams. And you can set up teams in ACT fairly easily. This is done in the Tools menu under Manage Teams. I've done that before in previous sessions, so I'm not going to cover that again today, but that's where you would set up teams. Once you've done that, you'll click Save, of course, and then that means that only those people will be able to access this record. So that's setting up security on an entire record. And you can do this for contact records, group records, company records, opportunity records. Now, you might think, well, this is going to be a pain for me to have to go in and change each of these for each user. One thing you can do is as you're adding new contacts, you can pre-decide this access level. And that's also done in the Tools menu under Preferences. And I believe this is done under the Startup tab, where we see when new records are added, this public-private area, it tells you what the default setting will be. So as I'm creating new records, I have them all set to public. But if I wanted to decide that whenever I create new records, set them private to myself or set them as limited access to users and teams, this is where you can do that. So now going forward, all new records would follow this path of what access level they should have. So that's one way to do it. As far as I know, there's no easy way to go back and reassign access levels to previous records. That may be something that our professional services group can do for you, but for you, I don't think there's a way that you can do that on your own. Finally, the last thing I want to show you today has to do with securing fields. So we've talked about user security. We've talked about record level security, but now I want to go down to an individual field level. And let's use my, let's go to my account info tab here, and we'll use one of these fields as an example here. So let's say that credit limit, maybe that's a sensitive field. I don't want anybody else to change this credit limit value for my customers, except for maybe me. Maybe I'm the only one who should be allowed to change it. I'll let other people see it, but only I should be allowed to change it. All right, what I can do here then is, again, going back into my Tools menu, we're going to go into Define Fields again because we're defining some settings on this field. We'll choose Define Fields. It's going to lock the database. I need to find this credit limit field that I've created. This was a custom field that I created, oh man, back in 2017. Wow, that was a long time ago. I'm going to choose this field, and I'm going to choose Field Security on the left. I'm going to click this Field Security button. Now what this does is it says currently your credit limit field is set up. How do you want it to be set up going forward? Currently, the default permission is read only. So I've already done this. What that means is anybody who logs in will have only read-only access to it. Now, there's 3 different levels of access. No access means it'll just be a gray bar. They won't even see anything in the field. Read-only means it will be a gray box, but the data will be there. They'll still see the number, $99,999. Or full access means they can see it and edit it. So by default, they get read-only. But now down below, I can say, I can change this based on each individual user. So for myself, I've given myself full access, but everybody else only has read-only. Well, it looks like I gave full access to Ian and also Fran. I could change this to, let's say that Al is new and I don't want him even seeing this for some reason until he's past his, I don't know, probationary period at my company. What I can do is click Edit here, And then for Al, I'm going to change his access level to no access. And I'll click OK. Now when Al logs in, he'll see that there's a field there, but he won't know what the value is because it'll just be a big gray box. So that's how I can set up this field security on a user by user basis. Or we could toggle over to teams and then say, I want to give teams of users access on a team level rather than on an individual user level. So I would say choose one or the other so that you're not having any collisions here on, if Al's set to no access, but he's part of Team Canada, then does he have full access? That can be confusing. So make sure you choose one or the other when you're setting up this access level for individual fields. So there you go. That's how you can use ACT to manage your data integrity and your data security. Let's go back into this thing here and talk about other training webinars. First of all, I just want to thank you for sticking with it today. And me, and I don't know why I was stammering a little bit more today, but I hope the information that was provided to you was useful. I hope you're able to take this and now use it to make your data better in ACT. The better data you have, the better your searches are going to be, right? So if you're trying to search for specific data, in my truck example, if I was searching for a specific truck, but somebody had misspelled it, those records would be omitted from my searches. And that's why data security and data integrity is so important across the board. When you're doing searches, when you're running reports, you want to make sure your data has integrity. Otherwise, those searches and reports will not be great. Here's the webpage you can go to, act.com/explore. That's where you'll see all the previous webinars that we've done. They're on demand. They're streaming for you live right now. You can go back and look. Like I said, over 2 years worth. We've done a whole bunch of these. So go back and view those. If you have a topic you'd like us to cover in the future, and maybe you've already submitted the survey, or maybe tomorrow you come up with an idea, you can just email us at team@act.com and just say somewhere in the subject line, webinar idea, and then give us as much description as you can, and we'll try and craft that. Because if you want it, I guarantee 50 other people are also thinking the same thing. So please send those ideas to us so that we can give you additional webinars that meet what you need in the future. So thank you once again. We're going to hang on the line here for the rest of the time here to answer any questions that you have. Thanks to Daniel for manning the questions. I appreciate that a lot. And I hope you guys have a great weekend, and we'll see you in March. So until then, bye. Have a great time, and thank you for using ACT.